come to me with a question or for asking for some kind of help with an issue or a problem, I know all kinds of people that I know would be very happy to help us out. They've been through what you've been through. And can I say that in an American context, I've been through what you've been through. There were 89 stations to cover the United States when we went on the air, and today there are 900 stations that cover every square meter of the surface of the United States, Alaska, and Hawaii. And I'm very proud to say there is a nice little radio station in Berlin, Germany, that carries NPR and public radio programs, and I helped put it there. And I'm very proud of it, and Berliners are very proud of it. So that's where I come from. Now, I've been with you for a couple of days now, and I've been listening to your stories. And yesterday, my colleagues up here on the podium, we were all taking notes furiously because we were hearing so much that interested us, that we had ideas about, and so on. And as your questions come up, I think it's probably best to relate mostly to your questions so that we can concentrate the time we have together. But I wanted to just give you a couple of reactions to some of the things that I've been hearing, all right? And then I welcome hearing from you about it. The first, I wanted to talk about comparison of this early growth, where we are now. Here we are, just the second one of these meetings. And let me compare briefly to the U.S. experience, what's missing and what's also common between them. What's missing, I think, is an infrastructure fund, which was present from the federal government at the beginning of public radio in the United States. Why was it there? Because, like India, there was a vast amount of population that needed to be served. There's no sense serving areas where there's no people living. We're talking about cities and counties and entire states that did not have a single public radio station. So the federal government carved up a few $100 million, and they put television in there too, because public TV, non-commercial television, was infant at this time as well in the U.S. The U.S. began with a commercial system, and then only in the 1970s came to public broadcasting. India is, of course, exactly the opposite. So they needed to, at that very late date, start to build radio stations. And for the technical assistance, the transmitters, the studios, the wiring, the interconnection, they did have a fund. Television ate huge chunks of it, as television does. And I think if I could leave you with one word of advice before I go, it would be stay away from television. But it was effective in getting a great many stations going quickly, because it overcame that first problem, which is, where are we going to get $250,000 to buy a transmitter and set up a studio? So it helped. There was a very good bureaucratic mechanism for getting that, and it speeded the process in American terms greatly. It was not a ministry, it was not a full ministry. It was a much smaller bureaucratic organization. It had this much money to spend, and its job was to spend that money and spend it wisely. And they did. Obviously, to go from 89 stations connected by landlines, by high-quality radio circuits, to a satellite interconnected and now internet broadband interconnected system of 900 stations. That's pretty much been in place for 30 years.
And even when he's discharged, he doesn't know that he has to go. He's ignorant of the whole reality. So I thought, just when I was out of college, isn't that the reality which we are facing? Isn't that the reality which the people in the villages are facing? They just don't know whether they are coming or going. There's a huge system which is turning around there. And they are passive within this. So what's the option to intervene? So there were 2 or 3 options, and one was the radio option, because then Sri Lanka, there was a river diversion program called the Mahaveli Community Radio Program, which they were diverting a huge river, and based on the Danish state workshop, Danish consultants, they told us about this. It was in the middle of the town. You find a place where you can come and record you can just say what you want to say. Now remember, this is 30 years ago. You can just say what you want to say about anything, maybe about a politician, maybe about a service, maybe about something which makes you happy, maybe something which makes you unhappy. And all this is collected in the evening by the Danish radio people, and they edit it, and they broadcast it in the night. Simple as that. So based on this, I had the opportunity of joining a team which went to villages, sat with the villagers, discussed what programs they want, and just gave them the technology, and they produced the programs, and it was there. Now this was a radical departure compared from looking from the very top-down Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation model. It was still within the government setup, but it was a radical departure. So here it gave us an opportunity to think, can we think beyond the day-to-day life of people, and instead of ignorance, can we give them opportunity to actively react with the social realities which are around them? Right. Just wanted to, but I'll tell you what this is. This is this big Mahavati Dam, and what did we learn in this period? If we are for being a bit abstract, I think in our social life there are three elements which control us. On one side you find the merchant, the big businesses. On the other side you find the prince, the government. Then you find the citizen, that is our area, or which you call civil society. But I think in community radio we found a fourth area. That's a very intimate personal space. Because when we set up community radio, we had the opportunity of being part of their family. I think that is the space where real community radio works. It's beyond citizen journalism. Within this personal space, let me tell you a story or two. Once I was reading the news bulletin in the night, walks in a gentleman with his little son. Their mother, they had some problem at home, and the mother has left home. The son comes on air and says, "They want to make an announcement now." And the son says, "Mom, please come back home." Now, which is possible in a normal radio organization, it's very difficult. But in our community radio, this was possible. When cattle get lost, the first place where they come running is the community radio to say this cattle with this and this mark is missing. If you find the cattle, immediately inform the radio. When the identity cards are lost, now identity cards in Sri Lanka were very, very crucial, especially in the time where there are civil violence, because you are checked with your identity card. If you don't have identity card, maybe your life and death matter. If the identity card is lost, they come running to the radio station. Now this is, in fact, if you ask me in these 30 years, which was the best time in life in radio, it was this time. Because on the New Year's Eve, we get sweetmeats, a full table like this, it's full of sweetmeats.